Hello, I thought I'd provide you with some video instructions on the first assignment because the the description is quite lengthy. I think there's something like 6 pages, but I think it's important that you understand first the premise behind the assignment. What I'm looking for is basically for you to do an experiment with a child under the age of 8. So you might have a niece, a nephew, a little brother, little sister, child that you babysit, your own child, any of those would work as long as the child is under 8. And basically what you're going to be doing with this child is observing their behavior based on Piaget's theory. So you'll notice when you look at the detailed instructions in the assignment, and please do that as well, is that I have given you 4 options. The first 3 options are for people who have children under the age of 8 that they can access and observe and have the basis to conduct the experiment. And the 4th option is for those who don't have access to a child. But I really caution that you use that as a last resort because I really want you to do the experiment. So even if you can get a neighbor child, like perhaps you have a neighbor in your neighborhood who is a grandparent who has a child come every once in a while, any of those would work. Okay, so what is it that we're expecting? Well, let's start with infants. If your child is an infant under the age of 2, one of the things that you're going to be looking for is either object permanence or this notion of egocentrism. So, what's object permanence? Object permanence is basically that understanding that just because you can't see something doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And if anybody's ever played peekaboo with a child, you know that they get surprised because, oh, you're hidden and you're back. That's because they haven't understood object permanence yet. At least infants under the age of 1. Now, some of them are better than others, and so you might have a child who's advanced who does understand this, but you need to look at Piaget's theory on this notion of object permanence and the video that I have posted on object permanence, so you can have an understanding of what I'm looking for in this particular continued situation. Now, if you have an older child that you're going to be working with over the age of 1, you might want to look at whether they understand this notion of egocentrism. And when you hear the word egocentrism, you probably think, oh yeah, kids are very egocentric. It's all about me, 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 me. That's not entirely what Piaget was looking at. It's part of it, absolutely. But the other piece that's really important is that they don't see the world from any perspective but their own. So for instance, you could be looking at an object here's a good one, actually. When you're driving, you're focused on the road ahead of you. If you had a baby in the back, they could be looking all over the place. They could be looking in the fields, they could be looking up in the ceiling, and they might say something about, oh, look at that cow over there. Or they might not say it quite so clearly. They might say, cow, cow, or whatever, right? But you, being focused on the road, can't see it, and they don't understand why you can't see it, because they feel that you have the exact same field of vision that they do. So the way that Piaget tested for egocentrism, as you'll see in another video that I posted, is that he had this little mountain and asked, does a child see this or does he see that? And they might put one thing on one side of the mountain and something else on the other side. And an infant, a child around 2 years old, even 3-year-olds, would probably say that they see the same thing, even though clearly the mountain is in the way from the object on the other side. And you don't obviously don't have to use a mountain. You can use toy castle, dish set, whatever, something that's going to block that child's view, or your view, so that you and the child don't have the same view. Again, the instructions are pretty clear as to how to set that up. The older child, a child who is 6, 7, 8, you would be testing to see if they understand this notion of conservation. Again, a concept that is clearly explained by Piaget, and in both my video and in a video that I will post, and my PowerPoint and a video that I will post. Conservation, according to Piaget, means that just because you take liquid, we'll start with liquid, from a thin container and put it in a tall container, doesn't mean there's less liquid. So you start off with the same liquid. You have 2 cups, one that's wide and short, and one that's tall and skinny. And you put the same amount of liquid in both. But the child will say that there's more liquid in the tall and skinny one because of the visualization, what they visualize. So this is what you're testing, just to see if the child has gone beyond that and understands conservation, that just because you change the matter doesn't mean that it's changed in volume. Okay, so those are the 3 basic tests that you would do with a child. Again, there's more detailed information in my document, but I thought having a visual discussion about it as well might help for some of you. The final possibility, if you absolutely do not have access to a child, is to go to the library database and find an article where some research has been done about a child, and then use that research to write an essay explaining what you found in that article. So for instance, let's say you look at an article that talks about challenges for autistic children developing object permanence. And it may give you some different issues that clearly the text wouldn't have talked about, excuse me, that you can expand upon. And I have some questions that I've written. I'm not leaving you on your own on that one. You have some questions that you need to answer, but you, again, would put it in an essay format. So that's in a nutshell the essay. And I just thought this might help hearing my explanation of what I'm looking for. But again, the details are there in the instructions, so please, please, please read them carefully, especially the particular age group that you would be working with if you have a child that you can work with. And again, as always, any questions, please don't hesitate to send me an email and ask any questions, or we can meet if that's what you need. But again, the email first so that we could set up a time that works for both of us. Okay, so in your email, be clear about your availability so that I can sort of say, okay, I'm available this time too, and we can meet. Okay, so you don't have to get started on that yet, but please don't leave it too long. It will be due on June the 14th. Excuse me,